Greetings. We're going to add some cool plastic vibes to our Blender mesh objects. I've just got a general plain old cube here. And the first thing we're going to do, we're in object mode, right? First thing we're going to do is go over here to material properties and let's add a material. Hit new, let's call it something descriptive. Let's make it red plastic. Just naming it that for our own purposes. Blender doesn't care what we call it. And now what we're going to do is a fun thing we really haven't done before, which is we're going to pull this window up. We talked about this on the very first day of class. And we don't care about this timeline here, so what we're going to do is go to a thing we do care about, which is our shader editor. Now this is a mystical land. In this place, this is called a node editor, and a node editor is a way to link chunks of functionality together. There's kind of a implied flow that's happening here. And what's happening here is you see a principled BSDF shader. This is a sort of standard non-glossy diffuse base shader. And this is our output. And what we want to do is we want to add some gloss, but we don't want to go too crazy. We don't want to make a mirror. We want it to be a blend of something that's just the principled BSDF shader and something glossy. So let's add shader glossy. And we need to combine the two, right? Like I said, we need a blend. So what we're going to do is we're going to add shader, and we have this kind of utility shader called a mix shader. And what's cool about the mix shader is it will combine the two. It'll take this shader, combine them together. Now, you're saying like, well, this thing is hooked to here. How do I get rid of that? You can just click on it and pull back on it, and it'll go away. So we're going to take our mix shader, and we're going to output our mix shader into the surface. And now we have two shader inputs here, and we also have this here, this factor. So let's go ahead and bring this glossy shader in here, and our regular diffuse shader here. And what we're going to do is add one more thing called a Fresnel Input. And the Fresnel Input computes how much light is reflected off the layer. And because it's plastic, we definitely want some light to reflect off of it. And it's very common to use this Fresnel Input when we have two BSDF shaders, and we can use it to adjust the amount of light reflected and the amount of light refracted as it would happen in the real world. So let's go ahead and add the factor in from here into here. You can leave this as is, this number, but we do have some adjustments to make. So we need to make this base color red because we want our plastic to be red, and we're using hex values, and there's a basic kind of fire engine red, which is FF0000, and there it is, it's red. And this glossy BSDF has a roughness of 0.5, and I find that to be a bit too rough. So what we want to do is do let's do 0.5. You can mess around with that and sort of see how it changes, how that value changes, how things look. I really encourage you to do that with all this stuff so you can understand how it works. Okay, so we adjusted our roughness, we set our base color, we've got our mix, we've got our material, we're looking pretty good. Now we have this red plastic material, and what we need to do is commit it to our cube. So let's go into edit mode. I hit tab key to go to edit mode, and now we can assign here, and we can get a little preview here, and we can see things are starting to look pretty juicy. We've got some skybox reflection happening here. And one of the things that can really make things really look plasticky is to have a nice reflective surface that's going to bounce some light into the plastic. So let's go ahead and go back to object mode. Let's do Shift A, add a plane. And let's move that plane. We can lower this down. We don't care about that so much anymore. Let's go ahead. It's right now, you can see it's splitting the cube. So let's set the location to -1. There we go. Now we're going to scale it out from 10 to 10. So we have this nice white surface that's going to bounce light off here and onto here. We also have a kind of boring light right now. Our light is a point light. It's not anything so special. Let's go ahead and change that to spotlight. And let's take this light and do G, Z, just like anything else. We can G to move, Z to lock it on along the Z axis. And let's crank this spotlight down a little bit so it's really hitting here and not so much here. And let's just see what happens. So let's go ahead and do render image. Oh, one thing we should do, oh yeah, it's looking pretty good. One thing that we should make sure we're doing is, I'm gonna pull this back up. GZ a little bit more. And let's try that again. I just want to see how it looks. Render image. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Let's change our render engine to cycles. That's here, this is kind of toaster looking object, render properties. Go from EV to cycles. And now do render image. This will take longer. Cycles take, yeah, now we're cooking. And now you can see this reflected light from our surface is bouncing up into this cube, and because our cube is way more plasticky than it was before, we're getting some nice reflectivity there. And cycles does take a while to render out, and there is our plastic cube. We did it. So take a swing at it and get those Legos looking like plastic, because, you know, the world needs more plastic. Have fun.